From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, October the 5th, 2016. A rocket fired from Gaza landed in southern Israel today. The rocket landed on a street in the city of Sderot, causing damage, and several people were sent to the hospital for treatment after suffering from anxiety attacks. IDF spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner said in a statement that today's attack, the second since the beginning of August in the city of Sderot, is the direct result of Hamas's terror agenda in the Gaza Strip that encourages deliberate attacks against Israeli civilians. The IDF, he said, remains committed to the stability of the region and the defense of the residents of southern Israel in the face of terror. And Israeli tanks retaliated for the rocket, hitting Hamas terror targets in Gaza this afternoon. And later today, Israel's Air Force conducted several airstrikes on more terror targets in Gaza. The IDF said it targeted a number of terror installations belonging to Hamas, calling the terror group the, quote, sovereign in the Gaza Strip, which bears responsibility for every terror incident emanating from it. A Palestinian man was arrested in Jerusalem today, suspected of intending to carry out an attack. The man was detained at a light rail station in the city when he was found to be carrying a tear gas gun, handcuffs, and tape. He was said to be from the West Bank and was in Israel illegally. Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs is set to meet in a few weeks to appoint the country's new ambassador to Turkey. This according to a report from the Times of Israel that said the ministry's nomination committee, headed by Director General Dori Gold, will convene on October the 27th to choose the new envoy. This follows the recent reconciliation between Israel and Turkey in the wake of the Mavi Marmara incident of 2010, when a flotilla tried to breach Israel's blockade of Gaza. If you recall, when Israeli commandos boarded the ship, they were attacked. And in the clashes that ensued, 10 Turks were killed and several IDF soldiers were injured. Just last week, Israel sent $20 million in compensation to the families of those killed, part of a reconciliation deal signed with Turkey back in June. And a flotilla that left Barcelona, Spain earlier this month, also aimed at breaking the blockade of Gaza, was intercepted by Israel's Navy without incident or injury today. The Zaytuna Oliva sailboat contained 13 female activists protesting the blockade. The boat, which was not authorized to enter Gaza, was successfully escorted to the Israeli port of Ashdod this evening. According to the Times of Israel and Israel Radio reports, female Israeli soldiers were sent onto the boat first in order to lower the chance of tensions on board. Both Israel and Egypt imposed a blockade of Gaza in 2007, when terror group Hamas took control of the Strip. The blockade is aimed at preventing the smuggling of weapons into Gaza for use against Israel. An Israeli security source was cited by the Jerusalem Post, noting yesterday that Israel sends hundreds of trucks with goods every day to Gaza with food and humanitarian needs, and that anyone can send goods to the Gaza Strip on the condition that they pass a regulated check. A national memorial service honoring former Israeli Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, and President Shimon Peres will be held tomorrow in Washington, D.C. The event is being hosted by Congregation Adas Israel and the Embassy of Israel to honor the memory and historic legacy of Peres and to, quote, commemorate his life of extraordinary leadership for the State of Israel, the Jewish people, and for the world. The ceremony, which will take place at Adas Israel, will be attended by U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, who will deliver keynote remarks, as well as former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, Deputy Israeli Ambassador to the U.S. Reuven Azar, and others. Israel Cristal, who is said to be the world's oldest man, celebrated his bar mitzvah this past weekend in Israel. The 113-year-old resident of Haifa is a Holocaust survivor. He turned 13 during World War I, and circumstances prevented him from having a bar mitzvah at that time. However, a century later, Cristal marked the Jewish coming-of-age rite, surrounded by his 2 children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And taking a look now at our programming for tonight, for Wednesday, October the 5th on JBS, we remember the Yom Kippur War, which began on October the 6th of 1973, with special programming tonight, including at 7, author-journalist Yossi Klein Halevi and former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. Michael Oren look at post-73 Israel. Then at 8, Mark Golub sits down with Yom Kippur War hero Dan Almagor on L'chaim, followed at 9:30 with the film The Battle Over the Soul, that tells the story of the battle on Saki Hill at the start of the war. And coming up right after this newscast tonight at 6:30, it's Thinking Out Loud with Micah Halpern. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, October the 5th, 2016. I'm Teisha Bader.